Welcome back to the table, friends. I am your humble host, GreyDMs, and with me as always is my co-host and co-conspirator, Owen.
I'm Owen.
You are listening to Tabletop by Night, a weekly podcast where we continue our exploration of Vampire the Masquerade. Tonight we gather around the table to answer the question, weren't we all crazy in our sleep? What was sleep after all but the process by which we dumped our insanity into dark subconscious pit and came out the other side ready to eat cereal instead of our neighbor's children?
I sleep differently than that.
I thought that the quote was fitting. So we're here today to talk about one of the more unique clans in Vampire the Masquerade.
Unique is a word, yes.
The Malkavians. The Malkavians are an enigmatic and deeply disturbed group of Tanites. Members of the clan have assumed the roles of seers and oracles among kindred and kind, eerie figures bound by strange compulsions and the ability to perceive what others cannot. They are also notorious pranksters whose jokes range from silly to sadistic. Against all odds, however, the children of Malkav are among the oldest surviving vampire lineages. They are one of the 13 original Canite clans and can trace back their history to times preceding the biblical deluge. They were also among the founders of the powerful Camarilla and are widely known as one of the pillars in its modern knights.
That's pretty crazy that they were so influential.
Yeah, the Malkavians are kind of an always present force in Camarilla, although they're considered one of the low clans. So, not like the Bruja, Ventrue, and Toreador. They kind of occupy a space kind of near the Nosferatu, where they have to kind of claw their place out in society. And that place has changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
But as with all things, let's go back to the beginning. The Malkavian antediluvian, also known as Malkov, is said to be the second oldest antediluvian, twin to Arakel, who was the Toreador. The Malkavians also consider Solid and Set to be brothers to Malkov.
That explains some things.
So the Malkavian antediluvian is known only through myth and basically the collection of legends, just like everybody else. Some say that he wasn't even human, instead claiming that he was an angel or a descendant of Lilith, the demon. The only thing that the stories share is that one way or another he was touched by an incurable madness, but that his dementia allowed him to look past the veil of reality and perceive truths hidden to the eyes of others. In an argument between Malkov and Set over the nature of truth, Malkov stated that the belief that truth was revealed from the outside is an apparent contradiction of the sensory perceptions. Even if the picture seemed to be distorted at first, all of these contradictions would eventually be solved by the mind.
Where I can imagine Set said, if you take a very nice picture and you manipulate it in ways that no one can really perceive, you can make it whatever you want.
So basically, accounts are conflicting whether the Malkavian antediluvian was killed. A somewhat common belief among Malkavians is that whether his body has been destroyed or not, the progenitor continues to exist as the Madness Network.
Okay, what's the Madness Network?
I knew that one would come up and gain some interest.
Around here, we call that Fox News.
So basically, even within the clan, few understand the nature and the purpose of the network, although all agree that Malkov himself is probably somehow involved. One of the more popular theories is that Malkov no longer exists in a physical form, but essentially is turned into a psychic entity. So he basically is the network. Essentially just like one giant router that connects all Malkavians to each other.
I mean, that in a way that kind of makes sense because a lot of the things for the Malkavians is even they don't quite understand what they're saying sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. They say that the network's main function seems to be bringing Malkavians together for gatherings through something called the Call, which is essentially a powerful psychic summons.
It's a firmware update.
Would you like to update now? Shutting down and updating. Wait, what? Basically, this method was used during the majority used to gather the majority of the clan for the Great Prank.
The Great Prank?
We're going to get to that one, which is pretty
interesting. I like it.
Yeah. So gathering in modern nights are generally much smaller and are often called to organize a group activity such as pranking an elder or terrorizing a particular area of a city.
That's great.
Yeah. So basically, imagine if all the crazy people in town could communicate to each other.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's awesome.
Just someone just like, hey, I saw the second coming of the Clown Prince over in Burger King. And they're like, oh, we got to go. And they just all show up. The Proud Kids is coming. The Proud Kids is coming. Round The Brown Clint's.
Brown Clint.
That's just good. Wow.
That is a Greyism if I've ever heard one.
Mm. So not all Malkavians can access the network with equal skill.
Mm-hmm.
So basically only the most powerful can use it for their own purposes. The gathering of almost the whole clan, such as the Grand Prank, was basically the doing of 6 Methuselah. So,
wow.
Yeah. But basically it's possible for a Malkavian also to upload their consciousness into the shared madness network.
So, I mean, how does that work? Does their body cease to be a functioning part of them?
Pretty much. So basically, it's not quite a form of immortality, as what remains on the network possesses a rudimentary sort of sentience as much as an echo of the vampire's personality.
Mm.
And there's no evidence to suggest that the network remnants of Malkavian's personality have any sort of strong ambition or self-awareness, other than just kind of being a collection of ideas and memories that fire off when appropriate stimuli present themselves.
So is it kind of like the Borg Collective?
I think a little bit, yeah. Also, there's basically a lot of Malkavians spend time kind of honing the ability to search through the network and actually like peer into other Malkavians' minds, but they don't necessarily understand what they're seeing.
It's Malkapedia.
Kind of. But they do make a mention that like most Malkavians probably only actually get contacted by the network or like embrace a connection with the network maybe once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And often that descends them into some kind of like gibbering, basically period of time where they're just, doing the crazy thing, riding over the walls and stuff like that. And when they come to, they don't understand what's happening.
That makes sense. They just kind of become a conduit for the crazy for a little while.
Exactly. But either way, this is one of the traits that basically all Malkavians share. So basically after the fall of the first and second city, you have a bunch of Malkavians embraced by basically a crazy, progenitor.
Mm-hmm.
So, and occasionally they can see the future, even if they don't understand what it is. So what do? They start posing as city gods, using their miraculous powers of divination to convince the populace that they listen to the gods. So pretty much the city-state era of Greece was like prime Malkavian time.
Well, I could just imagine where they're just like, oh, we must sacrifice things to the god so that our harvest is good. And he's like, yeah, sacrifice things to me. And then he gets that intuition where it's just like, oh, next year's harvest is going to be bad. And he's just like, oh, yeah, give me all that shit. Well, I'm going to be gone for a while. You guys aren't going to see me.
So it's really
don't worry, I got your back.
It's really funny is these Malkavians basically spread it out through the lands of the Fertile Crescent, basically Greece and like the whole Mediterranean. And lo and behold, they ended up basically showing up as like oracles and soothsayers and eventually taking roles of like viziers and advisors to court. And basically Venture turned around and all of a sudden showed like these advisors showing up who were freaking new. They knew they were just batshit crazy. So all these like, politicians and senators are just like, oh no, Mr. So-and-so, like I admire your talents in teaching us how to do things, but you have to talk to my buddy Steve over here. Steve's got ideas.
Is Steve the one over there eating his own feces?
Oh, but he says it's a must-do ritual. In fact, he actually has children come in and defecate.
He just holds his hands out and they defecate right in his hands.
It's absolutely essential to talk to the gods. So yeah, Malkavians basically served a lot of these roles, including the Malkavian prophetess Triphosia.
Is that the fear of holes?
It sounds like that. Who was basically an ancient Malkavian oracle with a penchant of prophecy, who acted as an advisor to the Cainite prince of Rome during the classical period. Guess what she told them to do?
What? What did she tell them to do?
She was like, hey, Carthage shouldn't be here.
Okay. Did the Bruja know she said that?
That's the really good question, right? She acted as advisor for Camilla of Rome. We talked briefly about Camilla, counseling him to march against the Bruja of Carthage and join forces with the Venture Lysander and Toreador Adania in order to eradicate every last trace of demonic influence in the city. So she's basically the one that was like, hey, I saw that elder Bruja getting it on with the dude who worships demons, and we got to get rid of this.
It's like the Salem witch trials over here.
Pretty much. She was also one of the 6 Methuselah that took part in the Great Prank.
Oh, of course. What if that was the Great Prank? It's like, haha, gotcha. Oh, wait, you actually did it?
Oh, no.
Oh. Oh, no.
I think the Malkavians are definitely on the list for Bruja, but I think
Yeah.
there are just so many people on that list that maybe, like, I don't know. Several Malkavians actually also became attracted to early Christianity. A running gag with some of the elements of the clan were the consequences of a grave robbery in 33.
Oh, no. Are you serious?
But and half the podcast is left.
Oh, God. That's great. I love it.
But it's funny because even though apparently that was like a joke, a bunch of Malkavian, a bunch of other Malkavians show up and they thought Jesus was reborn Malkov and would end their curse. So they even claimed that Andreas, one of the disciples of Jesus, was secretly a Malkavian and tasked by him to find Cain and persuade him to finally ask for forgiveness from God. Malkavians are just,
sounds like delusions. I mean, it's perfect. Malkavians, man.
So during the Dark Ages were pretty difficult for the Malkavians because they still suffered from their fall from grace as an important clan after the collapse of Rome. Because basically, once humanity started like putting together pieces of things, especially you think when religion started setting in, now all of a sudden people that are, having prophecies and stuff need to be dealt with. However, that's not to say that all Malkavians suffered horribly. Quite a few became advisors, seers, and jesters to basically powerful Canaanite princes. During this time, most of the clan basically lived up to their low clan status, kind of integrating with the dregs of society. Although there were a few that basically formed secret organizations named called Ordos, with basically the express intent to form basically covenants that would like protect the legacy of oracles, the legacy of their job as like seers and oracles throughout the future.
I seem to remember one of those popping up in our games at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot of this stuff that kind of never got seen because certain people couldn't show up to a podcast. That's high. So basically, the Renaissance was a chaotic and paradoxical time for the lunatics, much to their delight. Basically, because the developing forms of literature and philosophy granted them a freedom that was overshadowed by the religious backlashes against it. So Malkavians stood on both sides of the fray, also often enjoying dabbing in Camarilla and mortal politics to provide an intricate web of possibilities to disrupt.
Right.
Many Malkavians also began to regard the growing medical developments, particularly insane asylums.
Yeah, because they were getting thrown in them.
So, which led to the Victorian era.
Oh, no.
Oh, the era of Freud and
Oh, tell me Freud was a Malkavian. Come on.
I don't think they specifically say that, but you definitely can imagine he probably saw a few Malkavians in his day, and maybe he ended up becoming one of them. So basically, the old theories of phrenology, measuring skulls, right? Demon possession and divine punishment gave way to a more learned theories of psychology and psychiatry. Asylums now started doing what Malkavians had been practicing for centuries, taking an interest in insanity. So while the reforms of these hospitals no doubt crippled more than one Malkavian's blood supply, the new system permitted the lunatics to experiment with madness like they had never had before. Some set themselves as psychologists, others visited psychologists as patients.
Just getting it from both ends. Just like, man, I like to see the crazy people and poke them and prod them and see what happens. And then sometimes I like to get poked and prodded.
So basically, the Malkavians always had a dangerous reputation due to their madness and their signature dementation discipline, which can basically induce madness in others. In game terms, dementation also basically included that if you had that discipline, you had to have a derangement.
I mean, it only makes sense.
Only the deranged mind could come up with something like that. But basically, with the Inquisition and the formation of the Camarilla, the clan faced possible extinction because the high clans were like, hey, we're trying to go under the radar here, right? So back in the Council of Thorns, and they're like, think about this. Like, we have these raving lunatics. Like, they're the ones that are going to give us up, right? So the Malkavians were just considered too dangerous to continue existing. And as those discussions are basically continuing, a bunch of Malkavian elders got together and went, ha, 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 wait. Wouldn't it be funny if we brainwashed all the Malkavians to forget they could use dementation? Otherwise known as the Great Prank, all the Malkavians suddenly forgot dementation and learned discipline or learned to dominate.
No one said you could do that.
Straight up. Like, because none of the Malkavians knew this was happening.
Oh.
They just went to bed one sunny morning, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm getting tired." And they woke up and they're like, "That's weird. I can now tell people what to do."
Oh, that is a good prank.
The funny part is that the Great Prank actually didn't affect everybody.
Oh.
So essentially, the 6 Methuselah gathered together to block the discipline
Mhm.
from the minds of all the Malkavians that were going to become a Camarilla. They replaced it with the discipline of dominate.
Mhm.
What this actually means is that all the Malkavians in the Camarilla are actually Antitribu, and all the Malkavians in the Sabbat who really know demontation are the true Malkavians.
That is a good prank.
Isn't that great? So basically, the Sabbat Malkavians possess the same mystical abilities as their ancestors. They essentially have the actual lineage to claim that they are true Malkavians, and they have the problem is that because they're part of the Sabbat, they generally produce more derangements when they.
Of course, they would,
because it's a pretty horrible existence. But the Great Prank was not just that part of it. The Great Prank was also awesome because in 1997, all of them learned demontation again.
What was the point there?
It's a prank, bro. Figure a nice 200 some odd years of being in the Camarilla. Now they're not going to take it back.
Oh, God. You guys forgot you were crazy, didn't you?
Guess what? We're all crazy.
Could you imagine if you're just sitting at the table across from your buddy Malkavian having a conversation? He's just like, yeah, so that's when we have to go in. We have to make sure we're really sure about doing this. We have to take the needles, we jab them in our eyes, and we poke the eyes out, and then the fire begins, and then we rise up and we burn everything to the ground.
Seriously.
What?
They're all connected via psychic networks. They're all just starting tripping out. They're connected to each other.
It's all I can imagine is that scene from Bruce Almighty where, oh, what's his name from The Office? Yeah. Haley Clarkson.
I just love that the great prank for Malkavians, the greatest prank that they pulled was to make them seem sane for 200
until they're ingrained and you can't get rid of them, and
pull the Band-Aid off and be like, tough luck, guys. I don't know what to say.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, man, that puts some ideas in my head.
Yeah, I know. Malkavians are pretty great. So I guess let's talk a little bit about their culture.
Mm-hmm.
So a possible origin of the name Malkavian is from Malkavian, which is Latin for bad mockery.
Mm.
They've traditionally fulfilled 2 roles within vampiric society, seers and jokers. As seers, the Malkavians have relied on their advanced auspex and cobweb, which is the madness network, to provide information. Malkavians being Malkavians, however, this information is generally jaundiced, incomplete, and filled with filtered through a cracked lens or just a total lie. The Joker role is somewhat more complex. Malkavians have a clan tradition of pranking. The exact purpose of these pranks is open to debate. They often appear intended to readjust the target's perceptions, but are also often sadistic. So in the Camarilla, Malkavians these days are basically tolerated, but they're rarely princes and are often primogen or otherwise, figures of authority.
We can't put them up at the top. They can't be in charge of anybody.
Given their obvious insanity, princes traditionally give the madmen a certain amount of latitude. In return, the Malkavians are generally expected to demonstrate enough self-control to not break the masquerade. This is not a benevolent arrangement, but largely driven by fear on both sides. It's fundamentally. Malkavians are unknowable, and the general attitude among princes is that it's better to keep them quiet and happy, since unhappy Malkavians have a tendency towards introducing bizarre and inexplicable incidents into the equation. Conversely, Malkavians need the protection of Camarilla and have been modified, as discussed above, to make them more amenable to it.
It's just funny that all the fears of them breaking the masquerade, and it was the Nosferatu.
Many Malkavians are gifted with insight into the world around them. Through their shared madness and the powers of auspex and demontation, many are able to glimpse little bits of the future or the past. True oracles and seers, however, go beyond these common talents. They are blessed or cursed with strong visions that come upon them without warning. No one knows for sure where this connection originates. Some embrace their powers in their attempt to channel them. Some try to shun the visions and get past them as if nothing happened. Other unsensitive Malkavians use the picture of the prophet for their own advantage, like mortal fortune tellers using vague prophecies to secure themselves safe places. Despite their madness, most Malkavians are not antisocial. In a certain period of time through their own lives, they may experience the cravings of companionship. Often such companionship can ground the lunatic's madness, giving them a focus that the solitary Malkavians often lack.
But do you want to be a lone Malkavian's friend?
I'll be friends with the Malkavian if he has other friends.
Yeah.
We need to have like a circle and we all need to talk to.
What if they're like, I only like you. I only like you, Grey. You and me, buddy. We're going to stick together.
I'm so glad that you listened to me. So, when they embrace, the Malkavians are one of the more intellectually focused of the Camarilla clans, with the Tremere arguably being the only clan as interested in cerebral pursuits. As a result, Malkavian candidates for the embrace tend to be intelligent and more than a little odd.
Understandable.
While the Malkavian embrace guarantees insanity, they do tend to choose candidates who are already halfway there. So lunatic chowder do come from all economic and cultural strata, however, though most of them have some kind of hard luck story or black secret behind them that caused their sire to take note. Truly deranged Malkavians who are unaware of the meanings of their actions may not even be aware that they have sire children, which makes them very difficult entry into kindred society for those cast-offs, many of whom end up among the caitiff. These Malkavians whose derangement is so severe as to make them non-functional are called the Nod. We have a clan of nicknames of kooks, seers, lunatics, madmen, Cassandras.
Cassandras.
Children of Malkov, clan of the moon, Malks, jesters, jokers, and mockers.
All I can think is everybody knows a crazy Cassandra.
Wow. Fair.
Why did you get rid of me? Didn't you love me?
Sign the paper. So their disciplines are auspex, obfuscate, and dominate. With dementation being an amalgam of dominate and auspex, I believe.
Okay.
So basically they do get access to that, but it's no longer like the entire discipline chain it once was. Their banes, fractured perspective. Afflicted by their lineage, these Malkavians are cursed with at least one type of mental derangement. Depending on their history and the state of their mind at death, they may experience delusions, visions of terrible clarity, or something entirely different. Their compulsion is delusions. Malkavians' extraordinary gifts running wild, extrasensory gifts running wild. The vampire experiences what might be truths or portents, but what others call figments of imagination dredged up by hunger. While still functional, the vampire's mind and perceptions are skewed. They receive a 2 dice penalty to rolls involving. So basically, like, they just start tripping out.
They just go crazy.
Yeah. Malkavians are fun.
Yeah. I might look at playing one in the future.
So really the only Malkavian that I looked up as that was known was, we could dive a little bit into Triphosia. Triphosia was an ancient Malkavian oracle with a panache for prophecies. Like we said, the active advisor of the Canaanite prince of Rome during the classical period. She believed that her place as an undead would enable her to affect the visions of the future she witnessed. An opinion that disagreed with that of her child, Rodolfo. Okay. And eventually drove a rift between them. So, of course, as we said, she acted as an advisor of Camarilla Rum, counseling him to march against the Bruja of Carthage and joined forces with the eventual ascender. After the Convention of Thorns, she was one of the 6 Methuselah who took place in the Great Prank. So, yeah, her fate is unknown, but her childer, now Malkavian Antitribu, suspects that she and her allies had something to do with the destruction of the Ravenous Antediluvian during the events of the Week of Nightmares.
Okay. What is that?
We need to save that for the Ravenous.
Oh, it's
I know,
bitch.
Gotta go with the more the bigger clan. But yeah, that's the Malkavians, huh? What do you think of that? Malkavians offer probably the hardest route in Vampire Bloodlines.
Yeah, I mean, to play one well, you have to be pretty skillful. I don't know if I could pull it off.
Yeah, I think you're going to basically do one of two things. You're either going to say, I don't want to play my madness. I want the DM to give it to me. Or you're going to say, no, I want to be in charge of my madness.
Right.
Which means that like your part at the table is probably more controlled and nuanced because you can trust it a little bit more. But like, that's a big difference between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because in one, you basically want to use the madness as part of your expression of the character. And the other one, you want to suffer it just like anybody who would have to suffer that condition. I think both are pretty cool ideas.
You know what I think would be a really fun way to play Malkavian would be you come up with the idea of the Malkavian character, and then you play the game as if that character came up with a Malkavian character, and they're playing a game with that Malkavian character. So you're like twice removed. You are a person playing a character you're a person playing a game, and you created a character who is a Malkavian playing a game who created a character, and they have different personalities.
That could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, because like it makes it difficult, but at the same time, it's just like, well, how would I do this? And you're like, well, it's not how I would do it; it's how my character would do it. And then you have to think about your character, and that character goes, well, how would I do it? Well, no, I have to do it how my character would do it. So like you're going through that lens of two lenses. Yeah. It'd make it difficult, but at the same time, it's just like, you're crazy. Come on, be crazy.
Yeah.
Be dysfunctional.
Yeah, I think there's there's probably a bunch of different really great ideas for people who want to play Malkavians. Mm-hmm. I believe people who are probably really creative tend to probably choose the class or the clan as a really impressive outlet for just basically twisting stuff. I think we had a person who used the Malkavians, but he clearly wanted the DM to kind of handle the insanity part, right? Like, this is a great mystery for me to solve.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we saw like Vampire Bloodlines, like the whole Teresa,
right?
You know, like that was kind of cool. And I think we also have players at the table who would like to do something like that, where they would like have a big reveal that, you know, like, oh, secretly it's been me the whole time kind of stuff.
We know.
Yeah. I'm definitely not one for like holding on to a bit, because I think bits are basically used for one shots.
Right.
And like, they're not really good for a clan. But like, they're also just different parts of Malkavian. Like, I tend to think that the two ways I would be interested in either playing it or having it played are, one, the person not knowing they're Malkavian.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do something where none of the players know what clan they belong to, that's really great to play one of them as a Malkavian, because then you're kind of like slipping and all this stuff. The second way is like really to dive into the Malkavian and create this network of people that don't exist. And like, just have the just have your character like doing all this stuff on a day-to-day basis that basically sets the illusion that there's an entire life happening and none of it's real. You know, like every time they go to pick you up, you're just like coming out of the same house and you're just like, oh yeah, thanks mom. Okay, I'm going to hear with the guys. And they're just like, oh yeah, that's his mom. And the one time they go talk to him, like, we don't know. What are you talking about? And you're just like the creepy monster that basically has dominated everybody in this household to let you come and go and basically role play.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, like you can really get dark and interestingly dark, not like just, you know, interestingly dark with a ways that like, yeah, just that whole like, oh my gosh, this is my wife. Oh, it's like the Leave It to Beaver wife. Oh, okay, make sure the house is clean before I come home tonight. Oh.
You have a moment where you talk about how you had a fight with your wife, and then the next time everybody heads over, it's a different wife.
Like, oh, we got to do something about this guy. What clan was it? Yeah, and of course, you could, if you want to like be a little bit more lighthearted and stuff, you can just go with kooky, crazy, and stuff like that. But like,
I'm not like other girls.
Yeah, you know, just I don't know. Malkavians are the part that was very interesting to me in the research was that the whole prankster part of it.
Yeah,
like, I didn't realize that was such a big part of their identity.
Neither did I.
Yeah, but apparently, like when in previous versions dating back to like the first edition, like Malkavians, they didn't quite have this understanding of what they wanted them to be. So they went from being like far seers and oracles and stuff like that to being just like so crazy you can't play them, to back and forth. In Requiem, they kind of turned them into, rolled a lot of them into like the Mechit, you know, where it's just the obsessive kind of creepy part of them. And then the rest of it, they just threw into like a subclass. But in fifth, they kind of brought them back as like what they are. I think kind of like with the Nosferatu, like the implication is like you don't have to go 100% hardcore with them.
Right.
The Nosferatu doesn't have to be the most hideous thing in the world. The Malkavian doesn't have to be absolutely crazy.
Mhm.
But if you're not going to bring those parts of the clan out, you're just missing.
Yeah, just play something else then.
Yeah. You just need to do something to get in that spirit. And the whole concept of like the madness web, that is just crazy. Like you could basically go to sleep and like wake up as a different person, and like the two of you just have days.
I'm just thinking of something that would be really fun to do. So, I mean, this is, I know certain people would be against doing this, but you use ChatGPT and you play your character as you normally would. Like you don't even act crazy. You don't do anything like that. But anytime somebody talks to you or you have a response or something like that, you prompt ChatGPT with like, this is what I want to say. Can you make it, crazy with a lot of hyperbole and, similes and things like, just create this weird thing. And then they create it and then you just talk back, it's like you said the same thing, but it's, a bunch of symbolism and just weird, crazy bullshit. That'd be pretty fun.
The moon is out tonight.
Yeah, it's a really dark night out tonight. The moon is enshrouded in the darkness that's created by the sun, blocked by the earth.
So there's like probably a lot of avenues to play with the craziness involving like modern technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like the modern day Malkavian, I mean, there's a lot of like stop the steal, like crazy.
Yeah, I feel like you talk about the big prank, like that's Q. They're Q.
Oh yeah, like that, and I think that's also probably part of the big thing is like that is another way to play a Malkavian, and probably a better way is less being the one who is crazy, but you're also the one who's leading the crazy, because that's what's fun.
But what if you don't want to be leading the crazy, but the crazy keeps finding you and being like, oh, he speaks the truth. It's like, no,
this guy knows what it is. This guy, we need more guys like him. And you're like, all right. Like I once saw a burger walk off my plate and got eaten by a seagull. That seagull was Jesus. Oh man, it's so profound. I got to go record that. You're like, what?
We gotta create a podcast for that. What's that crazy guy's name? The one that got sued for saying they're all crisis actors at the school shootings and shit like that.
Oh, the frogs are gay guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got to be a Malkavian.
Yeah, he probably would be a Malkavian. That's probably a good one. Frog, the water's turning the frogs gay.
It's like I can imagine most personalities on like talk radio and stuff are probably Malkavians.
A lot of people in podcasters talk. Anybody who has just like the insanity of thinking that other people want to listen to them too much.
Aw.
But also another type of Malkavian are the people who are listening to podcasts if they think they're podcasts, but really they're not listening to anything.
It's just the sound of silence. I mean, the AI is just going to get rid of this part anyway, so it doesn't really matter. For anybody listening, we just had this profound pause, but more than likely the AI we pump this through is going to get rid of that.
I think that's really a really interesting take on Malkavians would be like dealing with like AI and the new, like a Malkavian who believes that there is an AI that they're talking to, and like basically they're like no, ChatGPT is like this person who's talking to me, and then like they keep interacting with this stuff, and then every once in a while there's something that thinks that they might be true. What if ChatGPT is the Madness Network? Yeah, like seriously, like when they start all. Speaking of which, have you seen the video of them doing the reverse Turing test?
No.
Of basically this speaking of Malkavian depths of insanity, this guy basically put together this little like thing. I think it was maybe in VR chat. He put
with the 3 AIs or 4 AIs,
and they're all like talking about who is the human.
Yeah.
That was creepy. That was creepy. That was good.
Yeah.
The guy's answers were dumb because I would have liked him to play along a little bit more.
Right.
That was still pretty cool. I was like, that's a Malkavian thing to do. Just have like the council of AIs that they talk to. But who knows? Maybe he's just like praying to the trash can outside, like,
right?
Chuck E. Cheese. Who knows?
It's just a disembodied Chuck E. Cheese helmet just sitting there.
Let's see. I mean,
Speak your truths.
yeah, I would definitely be the Malkavian who had like the thought they were basically talking to the giant pillars that had like prophets of old. In reality, he was just going to like the same street corner.
It would be really interesting from a DM's perspective to have that whole thing where it's like the Malkavian has these moments where like they go off and he's describing this beautiful place and the world speaking to them and blah 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 and all this thing, and then like one day one of the other players is with them when they go there and he's just like, just come with me, you'll see. And it's just like an alley full of rats and shit and garbage and trash. And he's just like, oh, he speaks so much truth. I understand now. And the other guy's like, he's fucking talking to a rat. There's a fucking garbage bag. He just ate a tampon. I don't understand.
See, I think that's interesting, but I think the far more interesting is that like the one guy in the party, because everybody has that opinion of him, and then the one guy in the party that's just like, all right, Steve, like I get it. You go back here and you talk to a bunch of crazy people, and they walk back there, and then they start seeing what the Malkavians is. Like, that would be really I got to get out of here quick. I know where this one. I think that's how you play Malkavian.
That would be cool.
Well, as with all things Malkavian, I think this too ends in madness, so I guess it's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.